Each week, American History TV's American Artifacts explores the history of the United States through objects. Up next, we visit Capitol Hill to talk to House historian Matthew Wasniewski and House curator Farah Elliott about the history of African Americans in Congress in the 19th century, and to see a selection of artifacts from the House collection.
The story of how African Americans come to Congress in the 19th century is not one that a lot of people are familiar with. We actually had 22 African Americans serve between 1870 and 1901, 20 in the House, 2 in the Senate. It's largely a House story. After Lincoln's assassinated, President Johnson takes over and has even more lenient view than Lincoln of how the southern states are going to be readmitted. And he's pushed constantly by the radical Republicans. And in a very short period of time, roughly 4 or 5 years, they pass a series of constitutional amendments and also laws that bring about the equality of African Americans in the South. And that starts in early 1865 with the passage of the 13th Amendment, and that's ratified later that year, banning slavery, outlawing slavery once and for all in the U.S., but then followed up by some major legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which extended citizenship rights to the freedmen, and then subsequently constitutional amendments like the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed citizenship rights, the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed voting rights, and then also a series of Reconstruction Acts that divided the South into military districts and gave power to Union generals to run those districts politically, essentially, to set up elections and to ensure that African Americans could come to the polls under the new laws and amendments that had been passed. The first African American who is elected to the House and seated in the House is Joseph Rainey of South Carolina in December of 1870. And following him are another 19 African American members throughout the course of the 19th century. Rainey wasn't actually the first African American in Congress. That distinction went to Hiram Revels of Mississippi, who was elected by the state legislature, as senators were back in the 19th century, and he came into Congress in early 1870. The high point in terms of the number of African Americans is the 43rd Congress, mid-1870s. There's only 6 or 7 African Americans in Congress at that point. So they're really too small of a group to drive any kind of legislative agenda. So they tend to give very eloquent speeches about some of the major bills, like the 1875 Civil Rights Act, which again is a piece of legislation not many people think about today. When you think Civil Rights Act, it's the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And what that bill in 1875 would have done is essentially the same thing that the 1964 bill did. It would have granted equality in accommodations, in public travel, and also in schools. And a lot of these African Americans from the South, from South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, got up and spoke on behalf of this bill, and particularly the education provision, which would have provided an equal playing field. And that provision, sadly, is stripped out of the bill at the very end of the Congress.
This is a 1907 print that was made of all, it's called Colored Men Who Have Served in the Congress of the United States. And it is really a testament to the persistence of hope in the African American community for participation in public life. It's done in 1907, and it's going to be another 2 decades before an African American returns to Congress. And this print was done sort of as a memento. In fact, the way it's done is this very popular method of showing a lot of things on a page. It's almost done as if it's a scrapbook or a photo album in sort of recognition of those things that had happened. It was printed in DC. We acquired it in DC. It may never have left the nation's capital, unlike black representation at the time that it was printed.